We're going to talk about frogs.
That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay? So yeah, when I saw the video that you put up, was it 2 days ago now? I think.
Yep.
Yeah, 2 days ago. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, and the next morning I got an email from my brother who also studies symbolism and is a very smart person, and he said, "Does Jordan know he's incarnating Pepe right now?"
I knew about Pepe, but I had nothing like that on my mind when I made the video. It never even entered my mind that was an association. I mean, I was just concentrating on this Kermit thing that had popped up. That probably popped up about 2 years ago. And the first time someone said that, I thought, huh. So I went and listened to Kermit, and I thought, oh yeah, I do have a voice that's similar to that. I can get it lower, but my voice tends to rise up into my, it's because of tension. So
this is it. We need to do we need to do the metaphysics of Pepe. No one has done it yet, I think.
Yes, exactly. Well, and so, and then this strange occurrence, of course, also emerged with regards to the mask that Charles had made me, or the hat.
Yeah, which looks like Pepe.
I know, it even has red lips, which is staggering. It's absolutely staggering. And so I just about fainted after I posted that, and people pointed out the correspondence with Pepe. Really, I just about fainted. And that doesn't happen very often. Like I can only remember one other time in my life when I was shocked enough to almost faint. I just thought that was just too much. It was too much to bear. And then thinking about the frog correspondences since then, it has been, well, it's inexplicable and absurd. But so much of this is inexplicable and absurd. I don't know. I tweeted something yesterday. I looked up Maps of Meaning, my book, on the Amazon seller lists, to see where it was located, and it was number 8 on books that are associated with behaviorism.
Yeah.
And it was bracketed by 2 other books. Mazarine Banerjee's book, and she's the person who invented the IAT that's been used to ferret out unconscious bias.
Oh my goodness.
And the other one was a book by Richard Bandler that I think was called Frogs and Princesses. And then to find out about Keck, I didn't know about Keck. And anyways, and then today I was watching Nina Paley, who's an absolute genius, and she's animated the plagues that Moses called down on the Pharaoh. And of course, one of the plagues was a plague of frogs.
Yeah.
And so.
Okay, so the frog is a perfect liminal character, because the frog, I think you tweeted about this as well. The frog lives both in water and on land, and so it's like it has a monstrous characteristic that it can cross. It's one of those things that crosses over between worlds. And so you see that in the stories, like the story of the frog and the princess is a perfect example, and it relates to the Pinocchio story that we talked about earlier. So a princess goes to a pond. She's playing with her favorite thing, which is this golden ball, and so she drops the ball in the water.
That just to mention something, that golden ball is the same thing as the snitch that Harry Potter chases in the Quidditch games in Harry Potter. And it's funny because inside the snitch is actually part of Voldemort's soul, right? So that's part of the soul of evil that's inside the golden ball. And the golden ball in Harry Potter has wings, which makes it a round chaos. Technically speaking, it's an alchemical symbol. And the round chaos is a mercurial symbol. And the spirit Mercury is an emissary of the gods. And so the gods are speaking to you when anything flickers in front of you and captures your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Quidditch game, the person who follows what captures his attention is the seeker, and also the person who wins not so much the game, but the metagame.
What's important, I think, in this story is that the ball is the most important thing.
Right. So, that's why it's golden. It's like
that's why it's golden. So for her, it's the idea that it is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So she drops this ball in the water. It gets lost. So she loses the most important thing. It falls into chaos.
Right. So that's the death of God for all intents and purposes.
Or just the idea of the loss of innocence, or whatever you think about it in terms of the loss of the most important thing. And so this frog appears and says, I can go get your ball if you promise something for me. And so the promise is that she will bring the frog with her into her castle, let the frog eat with her, and then let the frog sleep in her bed. Okay?
Right.
So we've got those two things, food and sex, we talked about before as well. So the frog goes down into the water and then brings up the most important thing, and the princess is forced to accept this frog in her. She doesn't want to, like, she's very annoyed that she has to let the frog into her house, eat from her plate, and then finally into her bed. But by doing that, the frog, of course, transforms into a prince. Here you have this idea that we talked about before, where the most important thing goes out into chaos, and whatever can bring it back, right? Whatever can bring it back to us can be tamed and can enter into the world, can find its place into the world,
and maybe even turns into the thing of the highest value.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, well, that's something for people to really think about marriages, for example. So, people are always, and I think this is part of the profound immaturity of our culture. People are always running around waiting to find the perfect person who's perfect for them. And so, one thing you might think is that if you ever found the perfect person, they would run away from you screaming immediately.
Diversification is key. One person who learned that lesson the hard way was Isaac Newton, who invested a large sum of money into the South Sea Company. Unfortunately for him, when the South Sea bubble burst in 1720, Newton lost a significant amount of that money. That's why diversification is so important, even for smart people like Isaac Newton. During times of economic uncertainty or market volatility, investors tend to flock to gold as a safe haven asset. Its value tends to increase during turbulent times, providing a buffer against market downturns, and is why people are turning to gold now. Birch Gold understands that navigating financial decisions can be daunting. That's why their dedicated in-house IRA department is there to guide you every step of the way. Birch Gold is committed to addressing your questions and concerns promptly. Their team is always ready to provide answers and clarity. Whether it's about fees, taxes on rollovers, or the timing of the process, they're here to ensure that you feel valued and well-informed. Text Jordan to 989898 to talk to one of Birch Gold's experts and claim your free info kit on gold. Their experts will teach you how to convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. The best part is it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. Just text Jordan to 989898. That's Jordan to 989898 today.
And so that perfection is something that you have to build within a relationship. And so you accept the other person, so to speak, warts and all, and hope that they do the same to you, and swear that you won't run from each other. Okay. And then as a consequence of that, you can engage in a mutual process of transformation that emerges as a consequence of telling the truth and having a truthful relationship. And then as a consequence of that, the transformation can take place. And you might start with a frog, but maybe you end up with a prince. So
yeah, so like we talked about the idea that this is the structure of the world, and so it happens as much on a personal level as it does on a social level, on a bigger sense. So just a little hint, we talked about before the story of Abraham and the three angels coming and announcing the birth of Abraham's son. Well, in the story of Sleeping Beauty, that's exactly what happens. The queen goes to the pond, and there, lo and behold, is a talking frog. And the frog is the one who announces to the queen that she will have a child, the most beautiful child in the world. And so, again, here is this idea of something coming from chaos.
Yeah, well, that's so interesting because, in the diagrams in my book, in Maps of Meaning, one of the diagrams is an egg shape that is the chaos into which things plunge. But chaos is an absolute state in some sense. It's the state of the unknown as such. And you never see the unknown as such. You always see something that's partly known and partly unknown. Yeah. And that's what the frog is sitting on the edge of the pond. The frog enables you. So the frog is an emissary of chaos, roughly speaking. Yeah. And you only meet an emissary of chaos. You never meet chaos because it's
non-existence. It's non-being. It's below being, if you will.
Right, exactly.
And so now this thing, like two things. One is interesting is that Kermit the Frog is the same thing because Kermit is a host. He's a host on a show. And so what he does is he transitions. He's the transition between different worlds. So you have an act, and then you have this transitional figure which appears, and then you have another act. And so that's the role that Kermit the Frog plays on the Muppet Show.
Well, and his primary, he His primary problem is with Miss Piggy, who's a really loud feminist.
That's hilarious. Okay, and now Pepe. So here's the metaphysics of Pepe. So this is what's happening in the world right now. Is that there's a very strange situation where the people, like, let's say the right, we'll call them the right, or like the forces of order, or the let's say the norm, the people who create the norm for a society. Okay, so we're in a situation where things have been inverted, and the people who supposedly in the narrative are the ones who create the norm are being marginalized. They're being pushed into the margins, right? And they're being told, you're the ones who create the norm, and we're going to push you out into the margin. And so
you think that's why they've identified with the frog?
That's why they've identified with the frog, because the what happens is there's a strange inversion that happens, right? The power of inversion and the power of mocking and the power of humor is usually on the side of chaos. It's usually on the side of the power of the margin is the power of question.
Well, I noticed this happening about 20 years ago. Is all the right wing had all the comedians. I thought, what the hell's going on here? The right wing doesn't have the comedians. It's the left that has the comedians. They're the ones that are poking fun. So I thought the world's gone very strange that the comedians have become that the right wing has started to express itself in comedy.
Yeah, so that it's a sign that there's this strange inversion that's happening, and so there's an interesting, like, just a little footnote on this. Like in the Bible, there's a story that talks about this. It's the story of Elijah. So in the time of Elijah, Israel has been worshiping false gods because of the queen Jezebel, right? And Elijah, who is supposed to be the prophet of the God of those people, has become a marginal figure. And so his name is Elijah the Stranger, which is very odd, because he is supposed to be a prophet of God, and his tool is mockery. He mocks the prophets of Baal, and that's something that you actually don't see very often in the Bible, where the tool to kind of bring back order is through mockery. And so this is what we're seeing with this Pepe figure, is that Pepe is like an inversion machine. Okay, so the people who use Pepe, what they do is they take something like an insult that's being thrown at them, and they flip it around. They flip it around on those that insulted them. Like that's what you did with the Kermit thing, which is perfect.